12 Tau missiles, each one designed to penetrate tank armor. All 12 fired into a single residential house in 6 hours. 4 American soldiers wounded trying to breach a bathroom. A 14-year-old boy dead in the wreckage. This wasn't a surgical strike. This was the U.S. military turning a villa into a crater to kill 2 men who'd spent decades perfecting the art of survival. The brothers inside that house had tortured Olympic athletes, ordered mass executions, and evaded capture for 4 months. Their last stand would require firepower no one expected. Who were these men worth demolishing an entire building to eliminate? Uday and Qusay Hussein, Saddam's sons, the architects of decades of torture and murder against their own people. By July 2003, 4 months after American forces rolled into Baghdad, these 2 men represented the highest value targets still at large in Iraq. Then, someone made a phone call that would change everything. An informant promised $30 million, the largest bounty in Iraq, tipped off U.S. forces to a villa in Mosul's Al-Falah neighborhood. The 101st Airborne Division's 3/327th Infantry Battalion moved in. Delta Force operators took positions around the perimeter. At 10 o'clock in the morning, loudspeakers broadcast surrender demands in Arabic. Silence. Then the occupants inside opened fire with AK-47s and grenades. What made these brothers choose death over surrender? And what happened when the shooting started? Inside that villa were 4 people: Uday Hussein, Qusay Hussein, Qusay's 14-year-old son, Mustafa, and a bodyguard named Abdul Samad. The brothers had chosen their defensive position carefully: a reinforced bathroom, a bedroom with concrete walls thick enough to stop rifle rounds. This wasn't just a hiding spot. It was a fortress within a house. The first assault team breached the door. A K-47 fire erupted from the fortified positions. Grenades detonated in the narrow hallways. Soldiers pulled back. 4 Americans wounded in the close quarters chaos. They tried again. Same result. The defenders had every advantage in that confined space: angles of fire, cover, knowledge of the terrain. Standard infantry tactics were failing against 4 men who'd spent their entire lives surrounded by violence, who understood that capture meant either execution or life in an American prison. The math was brutal. Send more soldiers into that kill zone and more body bags come home. Pull back and the highest value targets since the invasion slip away. Commanders faced a decision that would define the entire operation: risk American lives in prolonged urban combat, or bring firepower designed for armored vehicles against a residential building in a crowded neighborhood. But here's where it gets interesting. Commanders made a decision that would turn a residential villa into a war zone. They brought in the Tau missiles, anti-tank weapons, each missile designed to punch through armored steel. Up to 12 of them fired into a residential villa over the next several hours. The Mark 19 automatic grenade launchers opened up. 40mm grenades fired in rapid succession, detonating against walls that had never been built to withstand military ordnance. M250 caliber machine guns joined the barrage, rounds designed to disable vehicles now tearing through concrete and rebar. Apache helicopters circled overhead, their 30mm chain guns raking the building. Bradley fighting vehicles rolled into position, adding their firepower to the systematic demolition. This wasn't urban warfare anymore. This was controlled destruction. The villa that had stood in the Al-Falah neighborhood for years disintegrated. Walls collapsed inward, ceilings pancaked, dust and smoke billowed into the Mosul sky. The defenders inside had repelled infantry assaults, but there was no defense against this level of firepower. The reinforced bathroom that had protected them from rifle rounds couldn't stop anti-tank missiles. By 4 in the afternoon, maybe 5, the building existed only as smoking rubble. The guns went quiet. Recovery teams moved in, picking through the wreckage, searching for bodies in what had become a crater where a house once stood. And this is where everything changes, the moment the rubble finally stopped smoking. 4 bodies pulled from the wreckage: Uday Hussein, Qusay Hussein, the bodyguard, Abdul Samad, and Mustafa. Qusay's 14-year-old son, 6 hours. From 10 in the morning when the surrender demands went unanswered until approximately 4 or 5 in the afternoon when the villa ceased to exist. But the Pentagon faced a problem. In a country where Saddam Hussein had faked his own survival for months, where conspiracy theories flourished in the chaos of occupation, how do you prove to a skeptical Iraqi public that the brothers are actually dead? They released the photographs. Graphic post-mortem images of the bodies displayed publicly in a move that sparked immediate controversy. Facial reconstruction was conducted. Medical experts worked to confirm identities beyond any doubt, to send a message that would shake the entire country. The Hussein regime's most brutal enforcers were gone. This marked the highest value target elimination since the invasion began 4 months earlier. 2 men responsible for decades of torture, murder, and terror campaigns against their own people, removed from power permanently. Somewhere, an informant collected $30 million, the largest bounty payout in the Iraq War. But there's a detail that gets lost in the tactical analysis and the strategic victory declarations. A 14-year-old boy died in that rubble. Mustafa never chose his father or his uncle. He never ordered executions or ran torture chambers. He was just there when the missiles came. But the real question is what this operation meant for the war and Iraq's future. 4 months after American forces invaded Iraq, this operation became the highest value target elimination of the war to that point. The brothers had overseen decades of torture and murder, Olympic athletes beaten for losing competitions, political opponents fed into industrial shredders, terror campaigns that kept an entire population living in fear. Their deaths brought relief to many Iraqis who'd suffered under their brutality. But the operation also sent a different message. The U.S. military was willing to demolish residential structures in urban areas to eliminate high-value targets. Overwhelming force over precision, destruction over restraint. It set a precedent, a template for future raids that would define the insurgency years to come. The tactics that worked in Mosul would be replicated across Iraq, sometimes successfully, sometimes catastrophically. The villa in the Al-Falah neighborhood became a case study in military academies. A tactical success with strategic implications that military planners are still debating today, 23 years later. This operation changed everything about how the U.S. would hunt high-value targets. 6 hours. 12 Tau missiles, 4 bodies in the rubble. July 22, 2003, removed 2 of history's most brutal figures from power permanently. Men who tortured, murdered, and terrorized for decades. But the cost was a villa demolished in a residential neighborhood. 4 American soldiers wounded. A 14-year-old boy who never had a choice. The operation became the template for manhunts that followed. The tactics, the firepower escalation, the willingness to bring overwhelming force into urban environments. 23 years later, the legacy remains complicated. Military necessity versus collateral damage, precision versus destruction.